Disney Plus has followed up its hit show The Mandalorian with another show about a bounty hunter in a shiny suit of armor. But while The Mandalorian was mostly a success, the Book of Boba Fett is a disjointed mess of a show which can't even decide what it wants to be about. Boba Fett himself is missing from nearly half of it. He becomes a side character in his own show because Boba Fett was a character made to sell toys.
It's the new Boba Fett Star Wars large-size action figure from Kenner. Darth Vader sold separately.
He had minimal dialogue. His job was to stand there and look cool. As soon as he was involved in an action scene in Return of the Jedi, he was taken out in a rather slapstick way. The Book of Boba Fett provides a redemption arc for its eponymous character over the first 2 episodes. Though after he is transformed from a ruthless bounty hunter into a big softy, the show doesn't really know where to go or what to do. Boba Fett becomes a crime boss, as was hinted at the end of The Mandalorian Season 2. But he's a sanitized Disney crime boss. He doesn't do anything truly controversial. Temuera Morrison was chosen because he played Boba Fett's father, Jango, in Attack of the Clones 20 years ago, which I saw in the theater when it came out, and to this day, I find it to be a terrible, terrible movie. This also means Boba Fett in the original Star Wars trilogy is now a 61-year-old man. Kind of weird. Why is Star Wars so afraid of recasting? Is it because they received so much backlash for casting Alden Ehrenreich as a young Han Solo? If Solo had been better written and directed, maybe fans would have eventually warmed up to the idea. All of this being said, I like Temuera Morrison in the role, it's just that he's not the badass character we grew up with. Now his partner Fennec Shand is doing all the cool fighting, and Boba Fett is kind of boring. His 2-episode redemption arc ends up being a solid story, but it's broken up with events that happen post-Mandalorian Season 2, and the show ends up being mediocre at best. Jon Favreau wrote every episode except Episode 6, which he co-wrote with Clone Wars director Dave Filoni. Although I enjoyed the simple storytelling in The Mandalorian, I don't think the writing here is very good. There are too many characters that don't get any development. They're just kind of there, like the Twi'lek that owns the bar. The story isn't cohesive, and it all feels thrown together. Episodes 3 and 4 continue Boba Fett's transition into a kind-hearted crime lord and introduce cyberpunk-style teens that feel really out of place. Even the people who liked the show must concede that these characters are underwritten and the character design is lame. Eye Guy, Jean Jacket Girl, no one cares about these characters. Before I tear this show apart further, I will mention some positives. The same volume technology used in Mandalorian, in which digital backgrounds replace traditional green screens, is used for the Book of Boba Fett as well. The show generally looks good, although it's not quite up to par with The Mandalorian, which overall had a grittier look to it. Film veteran Dean Cundey, who was cinematographer for the Book of Boba Fett, has an impressive body of work. He's worked most famously with John Carpenter, Robert Zemeckis, and Steven Spielberg. The Book of Boba Fett is a well-shot show, though that being said, Cundey isn't exactly reinventing the wheel with this one. The dude is 75 years old. He's a legend at this point. He shot some of John Carpenter's best films, The Thing, Halloween, Big Trouble in Little China, Escape from New York. He also shot Roadhouse, Jurassic Park, and the Back to the Future trilogy. He was also nominated for an Academy Award for Who Framed Roger Rabbit, though he also shot the Adam Sandler movie Jack and Jill and the Bill Murray Garfield movie, so it's not like his inclusion guarantees a good film. Mad respect for the work of Dean Cundey, though. I was a big fan of Ludwig Göransson's score for The Mandalorian because it didn't rely on calling back to John Williams' themes from the original. It really forged its own identity. Less grandiose than the bombast of the Star Wars film scores. I really liked his score for Christopher Nolan's Tenet as well. His score for Boba Fett is good, but Personally, I prefer the music in The Mandalorian. This might come down to liking Din Djarin's theme more than Boba Fett's theme with its weird chanting. Robert Rodriguez, who directed episodes 1, 3, and 7, has said that he prefers using an old-school green screen, like the one he used on his most recent film, a children's superhero film for Netflix called We Can Be Heroes. He prefers it because he can just shoot and figure out the backgrounds later. Rodriguez is also known for his Spy Kids movies, as well as Shark Boy and Lava Girl, which is remembered for its hilariously bad effects. Critics of the show were quick to note this with some of the questionable production design choices. I took notes of my impressions as I was watching the show, but I gave up after the 4th episode. After episodes 3 and 4, I didn't even know if the show was worth finishing. Up to this point, episode 2 was the only episode I enjoyed the majority of. I've compiled these notes together with some additional thoughts after finishing the show. Therefore, my spoiler section will be more of a free-form stream of consciousness rant. Enjoy.
Boba Fett has a see-through helmet with play rangefinder to locate your objective. You can move his legs, knees, arms, even wrists and elbows.
Chapter 1, Stranger in a Strange Land. Nearly 40 years later, Boba Fett has finally crawled out of that Sarlacc pit. And then Jawas steal his armor. Because they did that misdirect in The Mandalorian where Timothy Oliphant was wearing the armor. Then, Boba Fett is swiftly abducted by Tusken Raiders. Yeah, we know he's gonna survive all of this, why not just start off where The Mandalorian Season 2 ended? Eventually we time jump and robots are suiting him up. The music here is a little over the top. My main question is if Boba Fett and Fennec Shand are interesting enough as characters to carry their own show. They were a great temporary addition to the ragtag crew on The Mandalorian, but what will their character arcs be? And why did Boba Fett decide to take over Jabba's palace? He's a bounty hunter, right? That's the one thing about him. The only thing about him.
I'm the best bounty hunter in the whole galaxy. That's why you got the job.
Who was Boba Fett before he fell into the Sarlacc pit? We never really knew. In the original Star Wars films, he only had 4 lines of dialogue. Now he's sitting on a throne and taking meetings at a bar like the one from A New Hope. They clean your helmet at the door, that's a nice service. Boba Fett makes a really goofy face when he strikes this guy. He would look a lot cooler if he just kept wearing his helmet. The Gamoran guards are practical, which I like, but they also look like dudes in costumes. It's fine. Next, we get a super silly parkour chase scene. Why is this guy running on all 4s like he's a dog? So silly. Whenever Fennec needs to be a badass, I'm guessing this is a stunt double and that's why she puts the mask on when she needs to be hardcore. Then we return to the post-Sarlacc pit flashback. I'm not sure I like this format as it does interfere with the pacing of the story. Some moisture farmers get robbed. Remember moisture farmers? Then there's an encounter with a scaly, 4-armed creature that looks to be practical. It's cartoony and old school. Makes me think of a Ray Harryhausen film a little. So, at the end of the first episode, Boba Fett defeats this large monster and gains the respect of the Tusken Raiders, but it's not like the end of the first episode of The Mandalorian where it became clear what the show was going to be about. Chapter 2. Remember the Rancor pit? Oh, it's empty. Not a bad gag. Remember Jabba the Hutt? Well, he's dead, so here's some more Hutts. Oh, they use tablets in Star Wars now. How modern. Ooh, it's an evil Wookiee. He's got spiked shoulder pads. Better not mess with him. This character has a name, I'm sure, but I never learned what it was. I must have missed some dialogue. Nice rack focus on Fennec cocking her gun. She's a badass character, and we know nothing about her. She's more Boba Fett than Boba Fett here.
I liked that we didn't give him any backstory when he showed up. He was just one of the bounty hunters. I think what made Boba Fett really popular was that he was a mystery.
In the Tusken Raider training flashback, Boba Fett continues to embed himself into their culture. This goes on for a while. It's basically a Lawrence of Arabia, Dances with Wolves, Avatar type situation. He steals some jet bikes, then teaches the Tusken Raiders to ride them and jump from one to the other.
Like a panther. Yes?
The train heist sequence was one of the better action scenes in the show. It was pretty cool. Did a lizard just crawl inside his nose? Is Boba Fett about to trip balls? So there's this whole scene where he has to wander through the desert, and he ends up at this ancient tree, and he has to cut a branch off the tree and carve it into his weapon. And it's actually all pretty cool. I do like all of that stuff. So these first 2 episodes really have to be viewed together to set the show up. And it does serve as a post-Return of the Jedi redemption arc that explains this reborn, more heroic and good-willed Boba Fett character. But that's also kind of the problem. He's not really Boba Fett anymore.
I have made contact with the rebels, and all is proceeding as you wish, Darth Vader.
I see why they call you the best bounty hunter in the galaxy.
Oh man, this Tusken Raider battle dance scene is really goofy. I don't think it's intended to be as funny as it is. Oh wait, am I being a space racist? Maybe the Tusken Raider flashback should have just been its own episode. Chapter 3. Hey, it's Stephen Root, the voice of Bill Dauterive on King of the Hill. Fun. Okay, this gang of young cyberpunks looks ridiculous. Oh, we're back in the past now, and I was just becoming curious about those silly speeder bike characters. Oh no, his Tusken Raider friends were just killed like Aunt Beru and Uncle Owen. Wait, he's gonna burn that weapon that was a big plot point in the last episode already? He went on a whole journey of self-discovery to make that weapon. Oh well. Evil Wookiee, let's go. He probably won't rip anyone's arms off though, because this is a Disney show. Actually, didn't they do that callback in Solo? Does anybody remember Solo? Yeah, I didn't think so. What the hell is Solo? This Hutt uses a small furry creature to wipe his perspiration off, but his female twin just uses a fan. Interesting. Oh hey look, it's Danny Trejo with a new Rancor. Makes sense with Robert Rodriguez directing. If Tatooine is such a worthless rock, then why does every Star Wars story end up here at some point? So the Hutts are already gone. Thought they'd play a larger part in the story. They left without doing much. Maybe they'll be back. They won't. Okay, Boba Fett is gonna ride a Rancor at some point. Seems like fan fiction. Oh man, those speeder bikes look pretty cheesy in the daylight. Least intimidating gang ever. Except for maybe the little rascals. Alright, the speeder bike chase scene is absolute schlock. Oh, an iris wipe. Star Wars, it's one of the only mainstream franchises that still uses so many wipes. Okay, I really didn't like that episode. It was a shorter one at least. Chapter 4. Oh no, more of the lame cyberpunk characters. What's with this music? Is this Star Wars or The Matrix? There's not a lot of tension with this infiltration mission as we already know the outcome. Okay, this is laughable that he would take the ship back to the Sarlacc pit and get this close to it. Boba Fett looks like Joe Rogan, especially when he's in his Bacta tank. I imagine Joe Rogan sleeps in a Bacta tank that pumps him full of elk meat and ivermectin. Tamira Morrison is 61 and Ming-Na Wen is 58, so they're both eligible for senior discounts. Not to be an ageist, but can we get relatively younger actors for our action show? Oh wait, they did, and those characters all suck. I suppose Keanu Reeves is 57 and he still kills it as John Wick, but outside of a few standout moments, the action in this show is pretty disappointing. Bass virtuoso Thundercat has a cameo in this show too, as a modder. He's put out some cool music, but I'm not sure why he's in the show other than the fact that no one's gonna turn down being in Star Wars. It's like everyone's childhood fantasy to be a part of Star Wars. In Chapter 5, the show becomes what people have been referring to as The Mandalorian Season 2.5, and this is a big problem with the show. The first 2 episodes jump time periods to provide a redemption arc for Boba Fett. Episodes 3 and 4 set up Mos Espa and the Cyber Mods. The next 2 episodes bring us back to Luke and Grogu, and quickly resolve the conflict that was set up at the end of The Mandalorian Season 2. It's kind of a disappointment that Din Djarin and Grogu are reunited so soon, And not even in a season of The Mandalorian. It's to the detriment of both shows, even though it's the best part of this show. The CG on Luke is a lot better this time around. Disney actually hired a YouTuber who created an upgraded version of Mandalorian Luke. They make sure not to show his face when he's speaking much, which really helps. Why not just recast Luke though? I've heard fans suggest Sebastian Stan, but really an unknown would be fine too. Mark Hamill was unknown when he was originally cast as Luke Skywalker. I will say there was a certain nostalgic magic to the scenes with Luke and Grogu training that called back to Empire. Fan favorite character Cad Bane is revealed to be the big bad, and then he's quickly killed off. I've never watched Clone Wars, so I don't know who this character is or why I should care. He does look pretty cool, but shouldn't he have been introduced earlier? He'll likely end up coming back in some other show because no one's ever really gone. So in the final episode, Boba Fett rides on the Rancor, just like we thought he would, and he fights a giant robot. It's fine. He looks kind of silly riding on the Rancor. Hey, the singing in the outro is a little funny, isn't it? So in a show called The Book of Boba Fett, the final shot is Din Djarin and Grogu flying off for another adventure. Boba Fett is now a hero of the people, and he's not that interesting.
Don Homer, my son, he has a trouble with the,
Ever since I was a teenager, I wanted to see a Boba Fett show. Now I've seen it, and I'm fairly indifferent to it. The Mandalorian Season 1 is like an 8 out of 10. A really good, simple show that had a lot of excitement around it, and a bunch of great actors involved. The Mandalorian Season 2 is more of the same and probably spends too much time setting up other shows, so for me it's more like a 7 out of 10. However, I'm giving The Book of Boba Fett a 4 out of 10. It's below average for me because it actually takes away from a better show by resolving its plot threads here. If you're a Star Wars fan, you've already watched this and maybe you liked it, maybe you didn't. That's fine. It certainly doesn't leave me very excited for the Obi-Wan show, but Robert Rodriguez won't be involved, and it seems like his episodes were the worst ones, so who knows, we'll see.
I'm the best!
New Boba Fett Star Wars large-size action figure from Kenner. Darth Vader sold separately.